For as long as I've been in the wine trade, winemakers have consistently said it takes a lot of beer to produce amazing wine. And because I don't want them to start slacking anytime soon, I'm going to be sitting down with some of my favorite winemakers and getting them all to take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. The challenge itself is all about chugging down a locally produced craft beer while still appreciating the world-class wine. Now let's find out who the quickest winemaker is. Welcome to another episode of DasBootiful Cape Winelands, where today I'm sitting with Nick van Aarde of Oldenburg Vineyards. Nick, lucky to see you again. Thanks a lot for being on the show today.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I know. What a beautiful day you've chosen.
Have a look at this.
I mean, Oldenburg in the background here showing off. So,
yeah, you're spoiling us today. So Nick, let's jump straight into things over here. Oldenburg, can you maybe just speak us through how the name came about, and also what makes Oldenburg so unique to the other producers around the region?
Okay, so Adrian van der Spey, who's the owner of Oldenburg, his grandmother lived on this property. It was her farm, and her partner was from Oldenburg in Germany. It's a small town in Germany, and the farm was actually called Oldenburg. So Adrian went out. When his grandmother passed away, he bought the farm, put up the tasting room, planted the vineyards, and decided to change it to Oldenburg, which is slightly more
South African,
not as Germanic. But the original name of the farm is actually Rondekop, which means round hill, and that's the name of this beautiful hill where all my vineyards are situated.
For sure. I mean, you have a range called Rondekop, don't you?
Yes, yeah. So our Rondekop range is our exclusive reserve range.
Okay,
We've got
we should have done that then rather. No,
three wines. We can always do this afterwards.
No, just
when the camera's off, we'll just get stuck in. So so we're sitting in the Banhoek Valley of Stellenbosch. We're as we're sitting now, probably at about 350 meters above sea level. We go to about 410 at the top of Rondekop. So we're at some of the highest altitude vineyards in Stellenbosch. And Banhoek is an interesting area because it's actually where the rest of Stellenbosch is affected by False Bay, by the sea and the moderating effect of the sea. The Banhoek Valley is quite far away from False Bay. We're slightly around the corner, closer to Franschhoek. And here we have more of what they call a continental climate. So we have quite a big difference between day and night temperatures.
So the
diurnal range is quite big. And it was quite interesting. When I moved onto the farm about 4 years ago, I live in a Cape Dutch house just down the road, and I wondered why there were two fireplaces in this house. And when the first winter came, I realized it gets really, really chilly here. So that's the advantage of Banhoek. And then we're the only site in Banhoek where we've actually can plant 360 degrees
that's really cool.
Around this hill in the background here. The rest of Banhoek is more northeast facing. Everyone's up against the Jonkershoek mountain here, but where we are with the hill in the background, I've got vineyards planted all over. So I've got cool slopes, I've got slightly warmer slopes, I've got granite, I've got Table Mountain sandstone, and I've got alluvial soil close to the river. So it's quite a unique site.
That's awesome. I'm glad that we're actually sitting in a different setting where these little microclimates and other aspects are affecting the growth of these vineyards, because where I'm situated right now, like you say, it's all about that cooling breeze that's coming in from False Bay and Table Bay. So, I mean, being in the center in this valley, it's actually quite cool. There's quite a breeze that's coming through here.
Yeah, the breeze comes over. So sometimes the southeaster. So as we're sitting there, the background, these mountains go up to about 1,600 meters above sea level. And then as the crow flies from where we are now to Hermanus is about 90 kilometers. So this wind comes over the sea, it climbs up to 1,600 meters, and then it funnels into this valley. But every now and then we get this cooling effect, or what we like to call our air conditioner malfunctions, and we get hectic winds in this valley. It can get, the 1st of October last year, we had gusts up to 120 kilometers an hour coming through here. So it's great for moderating and keeping the vineyards cool, keeping the disease away. But every now and then it can get very, very gusty. So if you actually look at our trellis systems and what we're planting now, we're doing a lot of bush vine, a lot of Stop Bay Polky, which is a bush vine with a pole. Because it can handle the wind a bit better. Because we've had some vineyards just get ripped apart by the wind. So it has a great effect. But sometimes the wheels come off.
Yeah, I mean, We'll get on to the next question now, but you make me think of not so long ago, there were those crazy winds that hit Stellenbosch as well, and Stellenbosch's vineyards were literally lying on the ground.
No, but I mean, it was those same winds that we had then. I remember I had to take my kids to school the next morning, and I basically physically, we couldn't get to school. We had to like cut our way with a chainsaw, open up the road, because a lot of these gums in the valley and pine trees had fallen over, and the road was just littered with trees that had fallen over.
Trucks were blowing over on the Solaris Pass and all that crazy stuff. People were like holding onto poles. I saw in the Cape Times, like there were oaks holding onto poles, like blowing away. But nonetheless, that's a story for a different day. But Nick, so out of all occupations out there, instead of becoming a doctor or a vet or something like that, what drew you towards winemaking?
It's actually an interesting question, because I actually did want to be a doctor.
Oh, really? You look like a doctor, yeah.
and my dad's a vet, funny enough.
Come on, it was meant to be.
So I had these aspirations to become, to save the world, and
you're saving us by producing good wine.
From cholera. And I actually started off studying a BSc with the idea to get into medicine. And then, it was when I applied, a lot of wine, a lot of party. Things didn't go right, but so I didn't know what to do with my life. And my one uncle is a chartered accountant. He said, Nick, go do a BCom, get stuck into business. You can always use it, further in your life. So I actually went to Stellenbosch University. I did a BCom degree. And about in my second year of BCom, I joined the university's wine culture society. So I thought it would be a great way to pick up chicks, and actually to get a lot of free wine and have a great social time. But little did I know that I totally fell in love with wine. I was bunking economics classes to go on wine tours. And years later, I was on the committee and just living my dream. So I went back to my dad and I said, okay, when this BCom thing is finished, I would like to go back and do a BSc, in winemaking. But, it comes naturally to me. Yeah. My mom worked for Oldenburg for many years. Okay. I was born in Paarl. Okay. And I remember years ago, or not years ago, when I was in matrics, in my final year of school, we were sitting at home and my mom opened a bottle of Oldenburg Edelrit and my dad poured the wine. And my brother, who's a year older than me, was swirling the wine. He said, can you smell the black currant and can you smell the berries? I said, just, what the hell, just drink the stuff, don't get nerdy about it, just drink it, So I was always a drinker. I mean, I love drinking, but I was a drinker, not a thinker. And after my exposure to the Wine Society, I became a thinker. And here I am 20 years later out of university and still haven't looked back one day and thought, awesome. Maybe I should have done medicine. I love what I do. I wake up every morning, feel inspired. And what a better way. I mean, this is
this is great.
This is great.
So Nick, in your own opinion, what's the most important stage when it comes to the winemaking process?
I mean, winemaking's one thing, but the vineyards for me are the most important. I think 70%. It's cut there. I just had an almond go down the side, a bit in my throat there.
It was a cheeky little snack that you had before the interview.
Yeah, I was like chewing a handful of almonds, it didn't pass out here. It's like, so I think, most of it lies in the vineyards. I think 70% of quality from wine comes in the vineyards. A lot of times they think, oh my goodness, winemakers are magicians, they can change it. It's very easy to make really shitty wine from good grapes. But to take really bad quality grapes and make good wine is very difficult. Sure. That from the vineyard point of view. And then the other one is blending. We sit for hours. I use my whole team. I've got Stefan in our tasting room. I've got Jürgen, my assistant winemaker. I pull in George, who also works in the tasting room, and Adrian and Vanessa if they're on the farm. And we all sit down together and we do the blending together. And we do quite a few days of different blends. And I think that's really important. And then again, just finishing off the wines just before you bottling, looking at the tannin, looking at the fruit profile. It plays a big role.
For sure. I like the fact that you incorporate everybody around you, because these are the folks that are all part of the journey,
No, they are. And as a winemaker, you develop what they call a cellar palate. So you only start liking certain things, and sometimes I just need to slap myself and get out of it. So it's always good to have a reality call.
For sure. So Nick, today the wine that we're concentrating on, or the varietal, is Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody always refers to Cabernet Sauvignon as the king of the black grape varietals. Why is that? I mean, what makes it the king?
I mean, Cabernet is the most planted variety in the world. I heard someone the other day say it was Merlot Day, and they said, oh, Merlot is the most planted. I said, no, Cabernet is the most planted variety in the world. But Cabernet, is big. It's got structure. It's a wine that can last for a really long time if made properly.
For sure.
Lots of tannin. It's got good acidity. And, you can actually plant it in quite a few different sites.
Yeah.
So it's very versatile.
Okay, for sure. So if by any chance you guys wanted to hold on to a wine and actually watch it or taste it over time to see how it does develop, the safest wine out there to do is probably Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
And also the most accessible, like you said.
No, it is, and it's great for blending. Put a bit of Merlot in there, a bit of Syrah.
For sure.
It makes a great wine. Yeah.
Making me thirsty. So Nico, Cabernet Sauvignon now. Can you maybe just talk us through the general flavor profile of that cultivar?
Okay, so Cab Sav is a variety which, as I said before, has a lot of colour. So it's a small berry with quite a thick skin. So when you are making the wine in the cellar and you're extracting it, you get quite a lot of colour from the variety. So lots of colour in Cabernet Sauvignon. And then it all depends on the area you're in.
Okay,
if you're in a slightly cooler area where we are, you get more of the black curranty type of flavors, sometimes even some of the red fruit, so red cherry, raspberry flavors. You can get some lovely tobacco flavors on it.
Sure.
Violets is always a great one
on the nose.
for Cabernet Sauvignon.
Sexy.
If it's in a slightly warmer area, getting more of that plummy, also maybe more of that black currant. Cooler areas like where we are, you even get a mintiness.
Nice, for
so
sure.
There's a little bit of mintiness, a herbal character to the wine.
I love it.
And sometimes it can be, the herbalness can sometimes be overpowering.
For sure.
But what we like is just a little bit of that herbal character. Think fresh marjoram, fresh thyme, rosemary, maybe a little bit of paprika.
For sure, nice.
It's got lots of different faces.
I like that because, a lot of people are quick to point out that greenness is a fault. But I mean, that green is just a touch, like you say, it really lifts the freshness. It really helps the wine out a lot.
No,
in
it
my
does,
opinion.
yeah. And in a cool area like where we are, I mean, it shows the coolness of the site, And, if you go taste the top Bordeaux in the world, there will always be a herbal edge. Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, it comes with that character.
Damn straight. So it's not a fault, everybody.
Exactly.
So Nick, now, I just wanted to quickly ask you, after all these years of being exposed to some incredible wines from all around the world, including a bunch of local wines, what's the one wine that's remained your favorite to date?
Wow. So years ago, 2004, I worked at Chateau Angelus in Saint-Emilion in Bordeaux.
Nice, lekker.
And I was a stagiaire. I was the only South African living in this little house called Petit Maison, which means the small house. It was in the vineyards. And I lived with all these French interns. And I remember one day sitting on my bed with I bought some French CDs and I thought I'm going to learn French and figure it out. And this big fat guy, Cedric, who worked with me, a Frenchman, walked up to me and he said, Nick, you won't learn English this way. Come with me. This is how you'll learn. And he took me out. We sat at a table and he just started opening all these bottles of wine.
Nice.
And since then I sat with these Frenchies and we drank wine all night and they spoke French and I drank wine and after a while we started understanding each other as the wine started flowing. So so on that harvest that I did, we had an after party, after harvest party. And the great thing about French is they don't take the wine industry or harvest too serious. During harvest, 2-hour lunches, 3-course meals, wine. It's amazing. You start working at 9. You normally finish by 5 or 6 in the afternoon. Very different to what we do, in South Africa, where we start at the crack of dawn, and at midnight the press is still running. So, and on this harvest party that we had at Chateau Angelus, Hubert Dubois, the owner, did this big speech, and everyone was sitting around, from the vineyard workers to all the stagiaires. And there were all these amazing bottles of Angelus going around. And I remember a bottle of 1985. It was a 5-liter Angelus that came around. And wow.
Really?
That wine left an impression on me.
Touching
and to
your
this
soul.
day, I actually took the cork with me.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've got the
No
1985. I've got the cork in my house. So
that's great.
It's my lucky charm.
It's crazy how some wines have that ability, right? It's like you know, whatever. People can think what they want when I say this, but it like speaks to your soul. There's no other way to do it. It's like everything goes silent, like your ears even start ringing, like
Yeah.
"Deet," and you're just like, damn, it's like the moment that you're sharing with the production that's gone into it and everybody that was involved. It's like you kind of connect.
No, that's it. And it inspired me. I mean, if you look at one of our top wines here at Oldenburg, it's called Rhodium.
Okay.
And it's a Cab Franc Merlot blend with a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon in it. And
Nice.
Angelus is one of the few properties in Saint-Emilion which has actually got quite a lot of Cabernet Franc. The Cabernet Franc and the Merlot are almost at the same percentage. So
That's awesome.
it inspired me to make wines like that.
Yeah,
So-
great. So, your own personal collection of wines, what's the most prolific wine that you've got lying around?
So years ago, in 2016, I was making wine at Warwick. I was working with Mike Ratcliffe, and Mike came up to me one day after a Cape wine auction that he organised, and we had the Harlan family. So Harlan is a cult wine situated in Oakville in Napa.
Okay.
Geez, the last time I checked, it was about $850 a bottle.
Damn.
You have to be on this waiting list, and almost sell a kidney to be able to get a bottle. So I entertained the Harlans and got to know them. And Mike said, Nick, would you like to do a harvest in Napa? At that stage, I think I was 40 or 41 years old. I had a pregnant wife and a toddler. And I said to Mike, thinking a little bit about it, yes, I'd love to do a harvest. So I left my wife for 2 months back home in Stellenbosch and headed out to Napa and worked at this really, really, really prestigious winery for 2 months. And when I was at Warwick, I had cellar hands, I had an assistant winemaker, so I was more like a pen pusher type of blender, entertaining clients. My hands were normally quite clean during harvest, and I went back to Holland and I actually had to get back on the floor. I was scrubbing drains, and I was cleaning fittings, and I was topping barrels and doing pump overs, and it was amazing. It was such a revolution. But when I left Holland, Corrie Emting, the winemaker, gave me a bottle of 2011 Holland Estate, and
nice.
I mean that's worth quite a bit of bucks. So when I go away on long weekends, I lock my wine fridge because I know my wife is always looking for something interesting to drink here, and she says, "Oh wow, this one looks quite interesting."
Okay, so Nick, all this wine talking is making me rather thirsty. How's about we open up this bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon?
I thought you never asked. Absolutely.
Smell this baby. Woo, sister. So Nick, now that this bottle of Cab Sav is officially open, can you maybe just chat us through the production process that's gone into the specific wine?
Okay, so all the fruit from Oldenburg is estate fruit. It all comes off Ronderkop in the background here, and our Cabernet Sauvignon vineyards are situated on what they call coffee clip soils. So coffee clip is a very reddish, iron-rich, what they call a ferrocrete type of pebble or rock. I mean, the rocks can be as big as like a football, and they go down to minute side, and they've actually got like little dimples in them. So it looks a bit like a golf ball type of, if you can imagine it.
Yeah.
But very rich, iron-rich soils with lots of clay at the bottom. And this wine comes off three of those Cabernet vineyards. And what we do here at Oldenburg is we pick the grapes nice and early in the morning in small little 18-kilogram lug boxes. It then just goes down on a short drive down to the winery, and then we put it into our cool room overnight. So what's quite nice is the cellar was built, about 4 years ago. And it's a state-of-the-art winery.
Nice.
And one of the things is this cool room, which makes an amazing difference because it actually gives me time to think about what I'm going to do. I can plan the day ahead, and I don't have to work really late night if the pickers get slow, and at the end I only end up like crushing and destemming really late in the afternoon, and then end up with late evening. So we put it in the cool room overnight. It drops it to about 4 degrees Celsius. Then we come in the next morning at about 6 o'clock, take it out, And what's great also about having such a new cellar is that we've got the most amazing machinery that we brought in. And me as a winemaker walking into Oldenburg 4 years ago, I was like a kid in a candy store. I had this brand new cellar being built. I could choose the machinery, and it was amazing. So the destemmer that we use is like state-of-the-art technology. It doesn't have a beater. It's very soft on the grapes. So out of the cool room onto a conveyor belt where we sort bunches, then into the destemmer where the berries fall through. It then goes over a shaker table, which has little slots in. So all the little green berries fall through. If there were some raisins, they fall through that. It then goes on to a sorting table where we have about 10 people sorting by hand, taking out all the berries that aren't supposed to be there. And that's the thing about Cabernet Sauvignon. It's not like Syrah where you throw in the stems and you can just, go crazy. Cabernet Sauvignon, if it's got stems in, if it's got unripe berries, it can be horrible. It can be green. It can be just have a really bad, tannin and acidity to it. So we meticulously sort it. We take out all the little pink berries, all the little stalks that might have come through. From there, it's pumped with a peristaltic pump very softly after being crushed to tank for fermentation. And then what I do is I do a cold soak process. So I leave the wine for about 5 days at about between 10 and 12 degrees Celsius. So as these little berries fall into the tank, we chuck in scoops of dry ice, which creates an environment where there's no oxygen, and also helps to cool down the tank, of course. The cooling on the tank's going full bore, and we keep these grapes nice and cold. And then for 5 days, I basically just give the tank a little stir, and then we start getting, we don't get any fermentation at this stage. We just get color development at that stage. And that's the idea of cold maceration, is just to get that little bit, or what they call cold soaking, is to get that little bit of color. From there, I warm up the tank, and then we wait for fermentation to start. So I've, in the last few years, been experimenting a lot with natural fermentation. So I've moved away from using commercial packet yeast, and I rely actually on the yeast that's in the vineyard to ferment the wine, because I feel that yeast is what gives that, what can express Ronderkop and it can express the valley the best.
Yeah, that's sorry to jump in here, but so that's important for me to ask you to maybe explain to the folks out there, is that what's the major difference? You've just pointed it out, but can you just mention again, what's the major difference between inoculating with commercial yeast and what natural fermentation is going to offer these wines?
So if you use commercial yeast, you can buy a packet, and some yeast will give more black currant flavors, some will mask herbaceousness, some are going to give you more red fruit flavors. So it's actually, you can decide like how I want to manipulate this wine. The ferment is quite fast, it's quite strong. It if you look after it properly, you'll get you'll get a dry wine. It's but I feel that you're manipulating the wine in a certain way in your direction. While with natural fermentation, it's a much slower fermentation. You really have to look after those natural yeast. You have to, give them the right food. You nurture them, keep them at the right temperature, because they're quite weak. The natural yeast, or what we call the wild yeast, is a much weaker yeast than the commercial Unococcus uni, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the really strong commercial yeast. So these yeasts are quite fickle, fermentation's longer, but when the wine's dry, you get expression of the terroir. You try and get the vineyard to show itself without manipulation.
For sure. So that's what I was actually picking up here now while sitting here, hearing you speak, tasting the wine. It's definitely got a combination of that dark black fruit. It's got a touch of red. It's got the tobacco element to it, but there's also a nice earthiness about it. And do you think that earthiness is also part of the natural fermentation, the fact that it is really taking in its terroir and like putting it out there too?
No, definitely. I mean, it does show the terroir. It does show the Ferrer Creek soils, those deep clays. You get nice rich wines. But where we are, at our altitude too, and in Bannock, you get a lot of elegance in the wines. Don't expect a big kick-ass Cabernet. You're not going to have a Simonsberg Cabernet here. We're much cooler. We get wines with more acidity here. We get wines with slightly lower tannin, but we get this beautiful quality of powdery tannins
yeah.
here. So the wines are extremely elegant, but don't get me wrong, these wines can age forever.
Yeah, for sure. This one has got power. So it's not a bodybuilder. It's one of those ripped, lean guys. You know what I mean?
It's a bit like me, that I'm going to work on before I go to Plet for my December holiday. I think I got a bit more than a month to pull this body together.
So Nick, you know, for as long as I've been in the wine industry, winemakers have consistently said just one thing, that it takes a lot of beer to produce amazing wine. And because I want you to continue producing wines of this quality, I think it's time that you take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. This season's beer sponsorship comes from the Kennel Brewery. Today's beer is the Lager D'Or, a lager. Unfiltered lager with a medium body and a crisp taste. A malt-forward beer with a light honey and nut backbone. So Nick, you know the rules. Once that beer touches your lips, it's go time, baby. You can have a look over here. So the challenge over here so far, we've had 5 contestants. Hagen from Zevenwacht is sitting quite tight here at the top.
Yeah.
And poor Rain over here, he seemed to have struggled a touch. Yes. Seems like he was built to make wine, not to down beers. So let's see, as long as you fall somewhere up here, hey, you never know. You need to believe. How are you feeling? Confident?
Yeah, I normally down beers with a straw, you know. I do the straw pedos, you know, where you take a beer bottle, you put a straw in, and then you get the air out. But hey, it's been a while. The last time I downed a beer was at varsity.
Hey, lekker. Okay,
yeah.
Well, let's send you back in time over here.
All right.
So Nick, I think it is time for you now to pay the piper and to take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. So I'm going to count you down from 3, yeah?
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Hey, it's actually looking pretty decent, Nick. You're doing a good job here. Oh yes. Old beer drinker. Check this, taking you back to those varsity days. It's looking strong. Send it. Last bit. Hey, Nick van Harder, everybody. That is it. Not bad. Nick, how do you think you did over here?
Oh, got a lovely ice cream here,
What are you thinking time-wise over here? Let's take a guess.
I'm thinking about 15 seconds.
15 seconds. 15:72, Nick.
There we go, man.
That's a really strong time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so Nick, let's quickly drop you on over here. So that's 15:72. Okay, so I'll be moving you into your place in the next few minutes. But Nick, I just quickly wanted to say a massive thanks for spending some time with us today. Thank you very much for letting us taste your wines and hearing your stories.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the wine that you're putting out into the trade. You're doing an amazing job.
Awesome, Gareth.
Thanks.
Good luck on your adventure and
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick.
See you in the trade.
So folks, that was the Oldenburg Cabernet Sauvignon. If you'd like to get your hands on that very delicious wine, just make sure to follow the links below. My crowdfunding campaign is still a go, and if you'd like to make a contribution towards my educational campaign, you can scan the QR code over here in the corner. So guys, that brings us to the close of another amazing episode of DasBootiful Cape Winelands. But before I love and leave you, I'd like to remind you all to be kind and drink good wine.
And beer.
And beer. Nick, thanks a lot again for everything.
Cool. Thank you.